Hello, I'm Dr. Aizaz from MedicoVisual.com, and in today's visual lecture, we will have a basic overview of ossification of bone. So we will discuss that what is endochondral and let's first discuss the intramembranous. What is intramembranous ossification? Intramembranous ossification, and what is endochondral? Endochondral ossification. Now, in this lecture, we will not go into the detailed steps of these two types of ossification. We will not discuss how exactly the intramembranous and endochondral ossification, how do they occur. But instead, we will have a conceptual overview of both of these types of ossification, and we will also see why body chooses one type of ossification over the other. Of course, the intramembranous is phylogenetically, or you can say from evolutionary point of view, it is more primitive type of ossification, and endochondral ossification is relatively modern type of ossification. But why sometimes some of the bones, why do they undergo intramembranous ossification, and why do other bones they undergo the endochondral ossification? That will be the theme of this lecture, and this lecture will be highly conceptual. So let's start the video that let's start from very basic concept that let's suppose you have the mesenchyme. You know what is mesenchyme? Mesenchyme is embryonic connective tissue. So embryonic connective tissue, or any type of connective tissue per se, it consists of irregularly arranged cells, and those cells, they do not have a specific shape. You compare it with the epithelium has a very specific shape. For example, epithelium may be cuboidal, right, or it may be, it may be columnar. For example, it may be columnar, or it may be squamous. But the cells in mesenchyme, they are irregularly shaped. You see, this is an irregularly shaped cell. So these irregularly shaped cells, in if we talk about the embryonic connective tissue, that is mesenchyme, if we talk about mesenchyme, it consists of irregularly shaped cells which are basically called mesenchymal stem cells. For example, these are mesenchymal stem cells. So it consists of irregularly shaped mesenchymal stem cells interspersed between a mesenchymal matrix. So this is the matrix. Matrix consists of ground substance, as well as you will see some collagen here. Let's not go into detail in this lecture, but this is the structure of mesenchyme. Now what happens that at certain places, these mesenchymal cells, they come close together. First they will proliferate. These cells, they proliferate, and at certain places they come close together and they condense. What we say is that the mesenchymal cells, they condense, they come close together, they condense, and with the help of this condensation, rather I should say as a result of this condensation, what happens that membranes are formed. So you see, membrane like membranous structures are formed, or you can say membranous sheets are formed. For example, this is a sheet. This is a sheet of condensed mesenchymal cells. So mesenchymal sheets are formed. And now within these mesenchymal sheets, what will happen that within these mesenchymal sheets, bone is formed. In this lecture, I am not gonna explain how exactly the bone is found within this mesenchymal sheet. That will be taken up in the upcoming lectures. But here, the conceptual overview that I wanted to give here is that the bone forms within the mesenchymal membranes. The bone forms within the membranes, and these membranes are made up of condensed mesenchymal cells. This type of ossification, this type of bone formation, ossification means bone formation. So this type of bone formation that happens within the membrane, within the mesenchymal membranes, is called intra means within, intramembranous intramembranous bone formation, and bone formation we call it ossification. So this is intramembranous ossification. This is the basic conceptual overview of ossification, and this is the most primitive and basic way of bone formation. This is the most basic type of ossification, which is intramembranous ossification, that bone directly forms within the mesenchyme, or you can say bone directly forms within the condensed mesenchyme, or you can say bone directly forms within the mesenchymal sheets or mesenchymal membrane. So this is the intramembranous type of ossification. Now, if this bone has to grow, at its ends, we will see later that at its ends, there are still the undifferentiated mesenchymal cells here as well. You can say this is the periosteum, and below the periosteum, we have undifferentiated mesenchymal cells. Now, if this bone has to grow, it's very simple that these undifferentiated cells, they will differentiate into the bone forming cells and they will lay the bone. So as they will lay the bone, what will happen? That bone will grow like this. So it's a uniform type of bone growth, and it's very easy. The bone is growing at the ends. This is called appositional growth. This is the appositional. Appositional mean it is growing at ends. Appositional growth of bone. So this is very easy. Appositional growth has occurred. Similar to that, I haven't shown in this illustration that here appositional growth can also occur here. That here it can also grow widthwise. That's very simple and easy to understand. So if the bone is flat or relatively uniform shaped, or you can say even if it is slightly curved, appositional growth is sufficient to grow the bone. But there is a problem. This intramembranous ossification is not always suitable. Let me show you an example. So let's suppose we have this long bone. Basically it's a femur bone. It actually develops with the process of endochondral ossification, but let's assume for a minute that this bone has been formed via the process of intramembranous ossification. So what will happen? Of course, if it develops with the help of intramembranous ossification, we have the what is this? Undifferentiated cells here, and if this bone has to grow in length, if we want to increase the length of this bone, what will happen? That these undifferentiated cells, they will start laying bone here and here as well, so bone will grow. And if this happens, now let me show you what will be the situation, what will be the shape of bone. So you see here at the ends, if bone starts growing with the help of appositional growth, this will be the shape of bone. So you see what happened. Actually, let me briefly tell you that this long bone, it can be divided into three parts. Actually, this is the diaphysis, and the ends are basically called epiphysis, and between the ends and between this middle long part, this is the metaphysis. Let's forget about metaphysis. Let's just imagine that we have the diaphysis and epiphysis. Now what actually happens, that if this bone was formed with the help of intramembranous ossification, then the diaphysis would not uniformly grow. The diaphysis would have stayed almost the same length, but epiphysis would have grown like this. So bone would have become totally misshapen. We don't want this. Now you may argue that osteoclast may actually come here, and osteoclast may dissolve the bone here. It may dissolve the bone here. It may remove this bone here, and it may sculpt the bone again, and again it may form a new epiphysis. Well, theoretically it is possible, but I think it may not be very efficient process, and it may not be very easy for the body, so it may not be quite efficient, and that might be the reason that nature did not solely rely on the process of intramembranous ossification. Instead, nature has come up with an ingenious solution to this problem, a totally different type of ossification, and that is endochondral ossification. Now let's see what happens if the bone develops with the help of endochondral ossification. So now this is another example of bone formation. Again, this is the mesenchyme, and we have already discussed that what is the mesenchyme. Now this time again mesenchyme condenses and it roughly forms a shape of the bone, but of course mesenchyme cannot form precise structure due to its gel-like consistency. It is more like jelly-like substance. It is not very firm or hard structure because the cells are loosely arranged. It is not very firm in structure, right? So again, it has condensed into a basic structure, but it does not go directly to form the bone. Instead, what it does is that it first forms a cartilaginous model. Actually, this mesenchyme, it transforms into a cartilage, and then that cartilage transforms into the bone. That cartilage converts into the bone. You know what? I deliberately said a wrong statement here. This cartilaginous model, it does not convert it into the bone. It does not convert, or it does not transform into the bone. This is wrong statement. Even some textbook write like this. It does not convert, this cartilaginous model, it does not transform into bone. What actually happens is that from the mesenchyme, cartilaginous model develop, and this cartilaginous model is replaced by the bone. Please note it down. It is not converted or transformed. It is replaced by the bone. Gradually, this cartilaginous model will get destroyed, and gradually it will be replaced by the bone. It will not be converted or transformed into the bone. So this type of ossification which occurs within the cartilaginous model. Endo means within the cartilaginous. Caudal is cartilage. So this type of bone formation which occurs within the cartilaginous model is called endo within caudal cartilage, endochondral ossification. That's very easy to understand. So now what will happen, that first the condensed mesenchyme, it transformed, it converted into cartilaginous model. Note it down that this transforms, the mesenchyme transforms into cartilaginous model, but cartilaginous model does not transform into bone. Cartilaginous model is instead replaced by the bone. So keep these little things in your mind and don't get confused. So cartilaginous model forms, and now this cartilaginous model, it is basically the miniature model of the adult bone. So it can grow in size. So what will happen, that first this long body of this bone, it will be replaced, the diaphysis, it will be replaced by the bone, and then after the birth, the epiphysis, they are still what? They are still cartilaginous. So after the birth, these epiphyses, they will also be replaced by the bone. You see, they are replaced by the bone. So now you see something very interesting here. You see the complete epiphyses, they are not completely replaced by the bone. There is still this cartilaginous model here. You see this. So this is basically the articular cartilage. You know, this bone has to form the joint, and at the joint it needs some frictionless, not completely frictionless. I mean, it has to decrease the friction, so it is covered by the cartilage. So here it needs the hyaline cartilage or articular cartilage. By the way, this cartilaginous model is made up of hyaline cartilage. Please note it down. Of course, we will discuss the details in the upcoming lectures as well. But anyhow, this hyaline cartilage articular surface, it remains. Actually, the remaining cap of this original cartilaginous model, it remains there, and it actually forms the articular cartilage. And then along with that, you might have observed these surfaces, these regions, these regions between the epiphysis and diaphysis, these multiple regions may be there. These regions, they are not converted into bone. They still remain cartilaginous, and you see these regions are here as well. Here we have again this articular cartilage, and here you see this region again. This is again cartilaginous. It remains cartilaginous. So what is the importance of having these cartilages? Actually, these cartilages are called growth plate, or they are also called epiphyseal cartilages. The bone can grow from here outward. I will show you in the next part of this lecture. So you see, nature has solved two problems here. We have hit two birds with a single arrow. We have solved the problem of articular cartilage. Of course, we needed the articular cartilage. So articular cartilages are there. Then we need these epiphyseal cartilages that are also there. This is the beauty of endochondral ossification of bone. Let me tell you how these epiphyseal plates or growth plates or epiphyseal cartilages, how do they work? Now, you see, previously with the intramembranous ossification, we had seen that if the bone is not uniform in structure, appositional type of bone growth is not enough to grow the bone lengthwise. So now what will happen that with the help of this epiphyseal cartilage can grow, but bone cannot grow interstitially from within. It is very difficult for the bone to grow from within because bone is a rigid hard structure. It is already ossified structure. It has already been formed. So it is very difficult to form the bone from within. But these epiphyseal cartilage, they can proliferate. We will see in the upcoming lectures as well how it happens. So these epiphyseal cartilages, they can grow, they can proliferate, and you see they grow lengthwise. Now as they grow here, this cartilage can be again replaced by the bone, as it initially happened with the endochondral ossification, that this initial cartilage was replaced by the bone. Here also this part of growth plate, which has now proliferated and become bigger in size, it can also be replaced by the bone, and hence you see the size of bone has increased lengthwise. Here also you see they can grow, and here also they can be replaced by the bone. It's very easy process. So this process where the bone is growing from within the diaphysis, it is growing from within the diaphysis. This is called interstitial growth. So this interstitial growth is possible because the bone is formed due to endochondral ossification. If this bone was not formed with the endochondral ossification, if this bone was formed with the intramembranous ossification, then this process would not have been possible. So this is the beauty of endochondral ossification, and that is why endochondral ossification is required. Also, it is relatively difficult to form intricate and complex shaped bones directly from mesenchyme. Why? Because mesenchyme, it is jelly-like in consistency. The cells are far apart from each other. Cells are far apart from each other. They are loosely arranged. So, even with the condensation, some degree of form consistency can be achieved, but still it is, hypothetically speaking at least, or theoretically speaking, it is difficult to form very complex or intricate shaped bones directly with the mesenchyme. So mesenchyme should first be converted into cartilage, and then that cartilage is replaced by the bone, except at two places, except where the articular cartilage has to be formed, and except at the site where epiphyseal cartilage or growth plate has to be formed. At those places the cartilage is not replaced by the bone. At other places it is replaced by the bone, and of course ultimately when the function of the growth plate has been achieved, when the bone has been sufficiently increased in length after the puberty, right? So after that time even the growth plate is ossified. So this is the beauty of endochondral ossification. So in our body, the nature has intelligently decided that certain bones are to be formed by intramembranous ossification, while other bones they are to be formed by endochondral ossification. But before going into that, let's have a brief review of this lecture up till this point. So we will discuss intramembranous ossification and we will discuss endochondral ossification. So in intramembranous ossification, mesenchyme is converted into mesenchymal sheet. It is condensed into mesenchymal sheets, and these mesenchymal sheets, they are directly transformed into bone. They are directly converted into bone. But here, in case of endochondral ossification, the mesenchymal condensates, mesenchyme or condensed mesenchyme, it is first converted into cartilaginous model of the bone, miniature cartilaginous model of the bone, and then this cartilaginous model, it is not converted or transformed, it is instead replaced by the bone. It is replaced by the bone. This is endochondral ossification, this is intramembranous ossification. Now, let's not go into details, but here I want to mention that for the flat bones or curved bones, slightly curved or uniformly shaped bone, curved uniform type of bones, or for what type of bones? Plate-like bones, or even the bone parts of the bone, plate-like bones or bone parts. This type of ossification is ideal. It's very easy and simple, and it is relatively faster method of bone formation. So it is best suited for flat bones or plate-like bones or parts of the bone. But this one, it is more suited for complex or intricate shaped bones, all those bones, or even the parts of bones, all those bones that require interstitial growth. For example, long bones, they require interstitial growth. It is ideal for that type of bone, but here there are certain exceptions. This cannot be taken as a hard and fast rules. Let me tell you, there are certain exceptions. For example, I said it is ideal for flat bones, but even some slightly irregularly shaped bones like maxilla or zygomatic bone, they also develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. So it is an exception, but it is relatively uncommon exception. Mainly it is for flat bone or flat parts of the bone. Here also we have exceptions. For example, you remember we have the sternum, this tie-like bone on your chest, sternum. So if you look carefully, sternum is quite flat. It is quite flat or plate-like bone. But even this flat or plate-like bone, it also develops with the help of endochondral ossification. If you ask me what is the reason for this, please don't ask me because I don't know. Sternum is the exception, and I don't know why the sternum develops with the help of intramembranous ossification, even though it's a flat bone, it's a plate-like bone. But this is what it is. And by the way, please note that endochondral ossification is most common method of bone formation in humans. In our body, many of the bones are quite complicated. They have certain tubercles and certain complicated structures. For those bones, endochondral ossification is the ideal one. This reminds me of something. If I have to present a lecture on a relatively simple topic, like this, these flat bones. If I have to present a lecture on simple topic, I just go on my computer and I start presenting on a digital whiteboard. I don't do any complicated thing. This is an example of intramembranous ossification. But if the lecture is complicated like this lecture that I am teaching right now, then what I will do is that I will make some slides, or I will make some 3D models, I will make some notes first, and then I will convert those models and notes into the lectures, similar to endochondral ossification. So with this analogy, you can remember that if the bone is complex or intricate, usually the endochondral ossification will occur. And this is the most common type of ossification in our body. So now let's go to Blender and let's see the examples of bone that undergo, and parts of bone, of course. Let's see the examples of bones or parts of the bone that develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. Of course, less bones develop with the process of intramembranous ossification. So naturally, other bones that I will not mention in that part of lecture, you can assume that they develop with the help of endochondral ossification. So let's go to Blender. So here is the skeleton. Now let's see what are the bones or parts of the bone that develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. So first of all, let's start with this skull cap. You know, this skull cap, this cap of bone, cap of flat bones, which has to protect the brain. You know, all these bones are flat and they classically develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. It's a quick process, relatively faster process, and they have to protect the brain, and of course they are flat, so naturally they develop with the help of intramembranous ossification, and they include almost all of the frontal bone, all of the parietal bone, and squamous part of occipital bone, this upper or squamous part of occipital bone, and this upper or squamous part of what bone? This is temporal bone. So all these parts, all these bones and parts of the bone which are forming this skull cap, these are flat, and naturally because they are flat and they have to form quickly to protect the brain, so they classically develop with the process of intramembranous ossification. Now let me hide one of the parietal bone to see what's inside. And now let's talk about other bones. This is which bone? You know, this is the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone, you see, it is relatively intricate in shape. It is very rough and irregularly shaped. It is not plate-like, you know. So most of this bone, most of this sphenoid bone, it develops with the process of endochondral ossification. But there are certain parts of this bone which are plate-like, which are flat plate-like, and these are called pterygoid plate, medial and lateral pterygoid plate. You see here, these are. So these are, okay, let's zoom inside. So these structures, they develop with the process of intramembranous ossification. Let's highlight those. So here you can see these green one, they develop with the process of intramembranous ossification. Right, so these are the pterygoid plate of sphenoid bone. All of the sphenoid bone, it develops with the help of endochondral ossification, but these plate-like structures, they develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. Then here we have these plate-like bones. If I show you, you see these are plate-like bones. What are these bones? These are nasal bones. So again, because these are plate-like, so they also develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. And then we have, what is this bone? This is called lacrimal bone. Again, these are bilateral, and these are also relatively plate-like. You see, these are also relatively flat. So they also develop with the process of intramembranous ossification. So one by one, I am changing their colors. these green color bones are parts of the bones, they develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. Of course, they are not actually green colored. I am just marking it with the help of green color so that you really understand what is going on. So nasal bone, and I have told you about the lacrimal bone. What else? There is this ethmoid bone. Where is that? Let me show you. So this bone, this is ethmoid bone. So again, this ethmoid bone, it is very rough in structure, but here this part is plate-like. This part is plate-like. It also develops with the help of intramembranous ossification. This part is called crista galli. It is believed, you can study in research article. I might as well put some references in the description or somewhere, that crista galli part of ethmoid bone, it also develops with the help of intramembranous ossification. So now if I hide this ethmoid bone, okay, let's hide it from one side only. Where is that? Let's hide it all. So here I have hidden the ethmoid bone. Here we have this, again a plate-like bone called vomer bone. Right, so vomer bone, it also develops, if I isolate this, this is the vomer bone. It also mainly develops with the intramembranous ossification, right? So vomer bone, again, it is flat or plate-like bone. It also develops with the help of intramembranous ossification. Then we have, what is this bone? This is palatine bone. How can I show you? Yeah, I can show you from the down, from the below, and if I isolate it, and palatine bone, it is also mainly, it is also flat in structure except certain parts. So most of the flat parts of the bone, they also develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. Then maxilla. Now, as I have told you previously, maxilla is an exception. Maxilla is relatively quite rough. You see, it is relatively quite rough, but still most of the maxilla, except it is believed that some part of this dorsal part, some part develops with the help of endochondral ossification, but most of the maxilla, almost all the maxilla, it develops with the help of the intramembranous ossification. This is maxillary tuberosity, or some people also believe that the maxillary sinuses, they also develop with the help of endochondral ossification. But most of the maxilla anyways, it develops with the help of intramembranous ossification, and I don't know the reason of this exception. Another exception is zygomatic bone. Again, it is relatively rough in shape, you see, but still it also develops with the help of intramembranous ossification, except it is believed that some part of this zygomatic arch, it develops with the help of endochondral ossification. So yeah, I don't think so you need to memorize each and every bone that develops with the help of intramembranous ossification. You can skip this part of lecture, but still, for the sake of completion, I will mention these bones anyways. So then, yeah, what about clavicle? Clavicle is another interesting bone. Where is clavicle? Yeah, so here is clavicle. Now, this middle part of clavicle bone, it forms with the help of intramembranous ossification, but its lateral ends, because they will form the joint, so they need the articular surface, and articular surface, it can be, articular cartilage, actually I should have said the articular cartilage, and the articular cartilages, they can be brilliantly formed with the help of endochondral ossification. So this bone, it's a mixed type of bone. It forms with the help of endochondral ossification as well as the intramembranous ossification. This middle green part, it forms with the help of intramembranous ossification, while its ends they form with the help of endochondral ossification. And of course, sternum, even though it is flat, but it still forms with the help of endochondral ossification, right? And by the way, here something that is worth mentioning that I forgot to mention in the previous part of this lecture, that histologically there is no difference between the bone that forms with the help of intramembranous ossification or the bone that forms with the help of endochondral ossification. There is absolutely no histological difference. It is all about the type of growth that will happen in that bone, and of course it is all about the need for formation of articular cartilage as well as the epiphyseal cartilage. Then we have this again, a flat bone called scapula. So most of its flat part they develop with the help of intramembranous ossification. Again, it's very easy to understand. And finally, the this bone, what is this? This is ileum. So ileum, it is flat plate like bone. So it also develops with the help of intramembranous ossification. So all these bones are parts of the bone. They develop with the help of intramembranous ossification, while all other bones they develop with the help of endochondral ossification. So that was about the basic overview of intramembranous and endochondral ossification. In next lecture, we will start discussing the detailed steps of bone formation with the process of intramembranous ossification. And in next lecture, which will come after that lecture, then we will discuss the detailed steps of endochondral ossification. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great day. Goodbye.